Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from Papayazizek. AITA for not letting my partner meet our friend off the internet, whom we date together online. My 34F partner, 33M, wants to meet his friend off the internet, and it's making me uncomfortable. We have been together and happy for 2.5 years. We have a dog and a good life together. I would describe us as more on the adventurous side when it comes to. We sometimes talk about adding a third or another couple. My partner is straight and I am. We recently discovered an app where we could meet like-minded people. Though we never met anyone off the app, we had some good conversations with others, and we even discussed setting up a potential date night in the future. The problem is that we just adopted a new puppy. She can't be left alone for too long, and certainly can't be left alone long enough for us to be able to go out on a date. However, we still discussed the option to explore the app more in the future. My partner continued to show me prospects on the app just for fun, and I would give him the green light to swipe right on some people that we both found interesting. About a week ago, I happened to look over my partner's shoulder while he was chatting with someone via text. It was a woman's name that I didn't recognize. I asked, "Who's R?" My partner said that she was one of the girls that we had swiped right on. He explained that they had decided to move their conversation off the app and onto text, for more convenience. According to him, they had been talking almost every day since then. I was a little hurt, and I felt left out. I told my partner that I felt a little bit uncomfortable to think that he is chatting to other women off the app without my knowledge. I told him that I thought we would be chatting to people together, as a couple. He apologized profusely. He tried to explain that it didn't seem like a big deal to him. He immediately created a group chat for the three of us to get acquainted, which I agreed to. Soon, the three of us started discussing plans to meet up at a dog-friendly brewery so that Puppy could come with us. All was well. Fast forward to a few days later. I noticed that my partner was texting a lot throughout the day. I got a weird feeling about it. I asked who he was talking to. My partner said, "It's R." I was initially confused because the group chat had been silent for a couple of days. As it turns out, they continued to have their own private conversation outside of the group chat. I felt a little nauseous about this. I told him that I felt uncomfortable to be left out of the conversation again. Again, my partner apologized for this. He explained that he sees R as a friend. He assured me that he wasn't intentionally trying to be sketchy, and even offered to show me all their messages right then and there. I declined. He added that they were talking about PG stuff, nothing even remotely, and that they just happened to share some similar interests and the same sense of humor. My partner then admitted that he felt a little bit confused, because I never had a problem with any of his other female friends. I explained that the context is very different here. My partner started talking to this woman through what is essentially a hookup app. I asked if he would feel comfortable if I was having private conversations with men from the same app. He again apologized and confirmed that he understood. He then offered to tell R to move their conversation to the group chat so that I would feel more included. I agreed to this. Well, R caught on that something sketchy was happening between us. She said that she values transparency and she does not want anything to do with either one of us until we figure out how to communicate with one another. She said that she doesn't want to be in the middle of a couple fighting. I don't blame her. I apologized via text and explained to her that I am not feeling super comfortable about this situation anymore. It's not her fault that this started off weird. However, I encouraged her and my partner to continue to have a platonic friendship if they want, since they seem to really hit it off as friends. She declined. She said that she doesn't feel comfortable talking to my partner if she knows that it's making his girlfriend uncomfortable. My partner was really sad about this, and I felt bad for inadvertently getting in between them. I assumed that contact with R was over, as she seemed pretty sure about her decision. My partner acknowledged that things could have been different if we had communicated better. We discussed the experience at length. I thought we were moving on. A few days later, I decided to check in with my partner about how he feels about the whole R situation. My partner surprised me in saying that he's still talking to her. He told me that she's catching a flight out of the country for a couple of weeks. He then said that she wants to potentially meet up with us for New Year's Eve. I was super confused. I felt left in the dark again. I thought we had agreed to more transparency between us. I told him that I wasn't aware that they were still talking. I asked him if he would have offered up that information if I hadn't asked him. He blew up at this point. He yelled, "I'm telling you right now, and I can't seem to do anything right." He said that I am making this situation way more dramatic than it needs to be, and that I am making the friendship awkward. He said that I shouldn't see R as any different from his other female friends. I defended myself, saying that I would be open to them having a platonic friendship, but I would still need more transparency than his other friendships, at least at first, considering where they had met, on a hookup app. My partner said that it shouldn't matter where they met, that I should treat her like any of his other friends, and that I am being controlling. He got so angry that he slept on the couch last night. He has never done that in our entire relationship. I feel like my requests for transparency weren't that extreme and were justified, given the nature of how this friendship started. Keep in mind, they still haven't met in person. This is all a theoretical friendship for now. And I can't believe that this theoretical friendship is coming in between us in such a big way. We never fight like this. We are usually super respectful to one another when it comes to disagreements. It makes me wonder why it's worth the risk to our relationship, if this theoretical friendship is already causing so much friction. I am already turned off and uncomfortable with the dynamic. This is a tricky situation to navigate, and I don't trust my partner to be transparent with me. I don't want anything to do with this woman anymore. To be honest, I don't even know if I want to continue exploring the app. My partner doesn't mean to hurt me, but I fear that he is oblivious when it comes to understanding why I would be upset about this. Unless I am missing something. Am I being unreasonable with my requests for more transparency? AITA? OP is not an AH for demanding transparency from her partner, particularly given then context and nature of meeting with their online friend ROP's partner behaves entitled, and his repeated private conversation with R is completely unjustified, and I think it is cheating. As for scores, I would rate OP's partner 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. Let's now jump on to the next story from spirited_parking. 9000 AITA for breaking contact with my friend, when he said he felt disrespected. I met a guy through Reddit, as we were interested in the same uni. From inbox, we moved to Discord, and the friendship was growing. I'm an introvert and don't really have friends, and the same with him. A while later, I realized the university we matched over wasn't a fit for me, and I told him so. At once he was like, "Well, you can go away then, none like me, and I'm always left alone. Now you two are not choosing this university, so there's no point in talking." It was weird, and I told him so. Also that friendships don't mean we have to do everything together, otherwise it's meaningless. He agreed after a day or so of pondering. Then we moved over to Instagram. We texted for a few days, then I had some situation in my offline life and forgot to check on the texts, and I keep my notifications off so that I don't doom scroll on Insta. I saw that he had unfollowed me and removed me from his following list and texted that he knew I would lose interest and not talk anymore. But when I told him the real reason, he sheepishly accepted the unfollowing thing. From then we texted almost every day, save for a day or two in the middle, for at least 1 to 2 hours. Even though it wasn't my thing, I didn't want him to be hurt again, so I went back every day. Fast forward a month from then, my dad fell very ill late at night, and we were in our country house with no emergency services before morning. So I texted him as I was having a full-on panic attack. All I wanted was for him to speak to me for a while, and it was during our usual conversation hours. After a little while, he stopped responding. I could see he was online but didn't respond. So I texted that I was sorry that I was being a burden and that I would stop texting anymore. Before talking to him that night, I had told him to tell me if I was weirding him out, not to ghost me. The next day, he texted me saying that he had fallen asleep and how sorry he was. I accepted his apology and tried to move on. Then he burst the next issue. He told me that we couldn't speak anymore, that his cousin had seen our texts. For context, we only spoke of movies, shows, games, and general day-to-day stuff, and he comes from a conservative trad family, and threatened him that he'll complain to his parents if he didn't break contact. By this time, I was too done with this, so I said I understand. Goodbye. A day or two later, he texted again, saying he had a big favor to ask. He told me that he wanted me to erase all our texts from Instagram and to give him proof of an empty text box. Flabbergasted, I asked for a reason. He told me, just understand. But upon poking, he told me he didn't trust me with proof of our conversations and how I may use them in the future against him, maliciously. Again, too done with him, I deleted everything and sent him the screenshot. Also, before he broke the delete everything, I had suggested we move to Discord so his cousin couldn't know. He suspected my reasoning, saying, "Why do you want to continue this?" So, we moved to Discord. During this time, my dad was in recovery mode, and I was his primary caregiver as we don't have any family. I was barely using my phone and was exhausted to the bones. He'd text me on Discord and expect the same hour-long conversations. I told him a couple of times that I wouldn't be available during this time. He'd say he understands but incessantly send highs. It wasn't like I wanted to ignore him. It was that I was too tired to text. I told him so, and one day he literally texted me, "What the hell, where'd you go?" I replied with an FYI as a fact, not the literal definition of it, but it still hurt his emotions when I repeated that I was exhausted these days. I was waking up every 2 hours at night and also doing all the chores of our duplex and taking care of Dad and our 4 cats at the same time here. He told me blatantly, "I'm sorry, but that's not my problem. And you should tell me, I can't talk today if you can't, every time I text." After that, he tried to rectify by saying that his issue was no contact. Not that I didn't talk to him regularly, but I didn't have the energy or time to even text him, "I'm sorry." My literal screen time that whole month was 23 minutes to 2 hours, during which I played Subway Surfers as it eases my mind. I told him again that I appreciate his concern, but I was literally not available. He sent another text about how he felt disrespected. After that, I broke contact with him and didn't respond anymore. I was too done. Now I'm not trying to villainize him, but I need peace from friends, not a chore. This is my main account, so he might find this. But again, I'm not saying anything that didn't happen. I have the receipts from the Discord texts about the last "where the hell" and following texts, but won't show those since it'll prove him right. TL. AITA for breaking contact with my friend after he told me that my dad being sick and me being exhausted caring for him wasn't his problem, and I still needed to text him nonetheless. So, AITA for breaking contact with him? OP is not an AH for prioritizing her father's health and her well-being over an overly demanding friend who always dismissed OP's struggles and concerns. Friendship is meant to support one another, and if a friend emotionally drains you, it is a huge red flag, and you need to get rid of it as soon as possible. In this case, OP's friend is an AH, and I would rate him 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. Let's now move on to the next story from Astron-on-Earth. AITA for leaving my relationship after he bought an apartment? I, 33F, have been in a relationship with my boyfriend, 32M, for just over 2 years. We've had our ups and downs, and always came back together and stronger. But recently, our biggest hurdle has become clear. He bought an apartment. We had talked about moving in together several times, but couldn't decide on where to live. We didn't want to move out of the city we're currently in. We live 20 kilometers apart. And he recently changed his mind about wanting kids. While I am child-free by choice, and have been verbal about this from the start, it was even on my dating profile. This led to him buying an apartment for himself, which is 32 square meters, overpriced, and partially paid for with money from his parents, which he actively had to ask for. He wanted to leave his previous rental apartment because he was unhappy there. Moving in together was on the table again, but due to our differing views on location and children, it was a tough decision for me to look for something together. He was welcome to move into my rental apartment. A 2-bedroom, 75 square meters, newly developed, 2023 penthouse with a wraparound balcony, parking, and a reasonable price. But he declined because he doesn't like my city. For context, he works in my city, and the distance is only 2.5 kilometers door to door. He says my city is too big, messy, busy, and lacks a nice gym. He is really into a healthy lifestyle, so he would be unhappy again. He tried finding a rental in his city, but had no luck, so he started looking to buy. As I work in real estate, I went with him to view properties initially and gave my honest opinion when asked for. This caused friction because there weren't many good options within his price range, and he was looking at the options high in his emotions while I was being quite rational. I, however, was vocal about my worries of him buying an apartment and what that would mean for our relationship. He had always said he wanted us to rent together for at least 2 years first before buying a place. His decision to buy now went against that and what he wanted for us, and that scared me. Eventually, he started viewing properties without me, started not telling me about them, and this concluded in him calling me to say he found something and was going to buy it. After showing me videos and the listing, I pleaded with him not to go through with it because it was too expensive for the size. He had to ask his parents for money, and it would complicate our future together. He brushed off my concerns, saying, "I just really need your support right now," and basically shushed me. This choice and how it was handled really hurt my feelings and damaged my trust in him and us. We took a 2-week break and reconciled. I love him, and I can't bring myself to break things off permanently. However, now that he's living there, it is expected of me to be the supportive girlfriend and be happy for him, but emotionally, I can't. I really dislike being there. It's tiny. I have to park outside the city and take a bus with all my stuff because he can't get a parking permit. And otherwise, I'd have to pay €25 a day for the public garage. Or I take public transport door to door, which prolongs the travel time by at least 30 minutes. And the city itself gives heavy student vibes, which I have frankly outgrown. Staying over is just a hassle. I have a pet that I have to leave behind, which makes me feel guilty every time I go, free roam bunny. And the fact that he asked his parents for money, and them giving it knowing my objections, stings. I always thought I had a good relationship with them. I see them quite often, and am basically at all family gatherings. I haven't seen them or his other family members either after this all happened, and I am dreading Christmas, to be honest. And honestly, it's also becoming an ego thing for me. It's just weird and hard to explain to friends-family that my boyfriend of 2 years, which wants to live with me in the future and wants my babies, bought an apartment recently for himself with no space for me, and despite my pleas not to. Also, for context, he changed his mind about having kids, saying, "If it means losing you, I don't want kids." This back and forth on such a life-changing decision makes me uneasy because I'm sure of my stance, while he seems uncertain. So, AITA for contemplating breaking things off with him. OP is not an AH for voicing her concerns about her boyfriend's impulsive decision. Rather, OP's boyfriend is an AH for his impulsive behavior. His behavior shows that he is not only an impulsive decision-maker, but also dismissive of his girlfriend's concerns. So, OP's boyfriend is an AH, and I would rate him 2.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from one Karus_X. AITA for cutting off my longtime friend of 8 years for wanting to get closure from my last rejection while we're both in a relationship. I, 23F, have a longtime friend, 24M, for 8 or so years now. We became friends while we were in high school. Even when I moved cities to be with my mom for college, since I was raised by my aunt in the city near my previous school, we gradually saw less of each other. But we kept in touch, sort of, and got to see each other a couple of times in my new city. For a little context, for the first year of our friendship, we had a crush on each other for a few weeks or so, but nothing really developed. He tried to confess a couple of times after, but I kept on rejecting him, and I thought there was nothing more to that, because it's been 5 years since I graduated high school and moved away. Not to mention the fact that we've both had partners since then. As I said, we kept in touch, but barely because I've been too preoccupied with my life. I'm pretty bad at keeping in contact with the people I know from my previous school, as I've had more than enough bad memories from there, and he's expressed how that annoys him to an extent. Fast forward to now, my boyfriend, 26M, and I have been together for 11 months now, and my friend knew that. He's known that for months now, and I've known he has a girlfriend for just as long, if not for a longer time than I've been with my boyfriend. So when he messaged me if he could borrow my school shoes for the cosplay of his younger brother, since I cosplay, I didn't really think much of it, and we striked a friendly conversation. I kept bringing up his girlfriend because I was excited to finally meet her at the cosplay event we were all going to, by coincidence, and I kept on bringing up my own boyfriend. Even when he suggested meeting up to borrow the shoes, I still brought up my boyfriend and how he'd go with me. But it took a really strange turn when he began reminiscing about the past, in a bit of a bitter way, and I joked that at least he was in a better relationship now than he had before when we were in high school, and then he just said, "I wasn't talking about my ex, I was talking about us. When was there ever an us?" But I didn't say that, and just told him gently that I wasn't comfortable with the topic because we both have partners. And he said he was fine with putting a stop to the conversation at that, but he kept on going on how he didn't get a proper closure from the last time I rejected him. And then there was just radio silence in between for almost or more than a year. And how if things were different? He could have been there for me and could have helped me through things if he just lived near me. And I don't think I still have the words, to be honest. I thought he just wanted to borrow my shoes, but then it became a weird conversation about closure. I sent all of this as it was happening to my boyfriend because there's no way in hell I'm hiding something like this from my partner. Even without his prompting, I sent a final message to that friend that what he said wasn't anywhere near fine to me and my partner, and that I wasn't comfortable with that, and that he should think about his girl and treat her better. After that, I restricted him, and I haven't looked since. He was my longest time friend, and I thought it would stay that way, but I can't keep in contact with someone who would disrespect me and my partner, not to mention his own partner. But at the same time, that was my longest friendship, and a part of me feels a bit empty and sad about it, because he was the last person I kept in contact with from when I lived in my old city. A part of me, the more sentimental part, feels as if I could have talked it out with him. I've cut out people for less, and if it was a stranger coming onto me, I wouldn't have even left them that last message, which I thought was a courtesy to our long friendship. People come and go, that's part of life, but a part of me still feel guilty, or that it was partially my fault. Edit. We've had similar talks in the past, and throughout all of them, we've agreed that we're better off as friends. And I thought that things were left at that since years have passed, until he hinted at his feelings just last year, and me and my friend talked to him when we were all in the same event. I thought he had truly moved on when he met his current girlfriend, but it seems the feelings lingered. OP is not the AH for setting clear boundaries with her friend, and communicating her discomfort with his actions. In this story, OP friend is an AH who disrespected OP boundaries by brought up unresolved feelings and for seeking closure inappropriately. So, as for scores, I would rate OP's friend 2.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from El Sapito Azul _ AITA for not wanting to spend Christmas with my mum? I'm a 23 female who hasn't had a very normal childhood. When I was very young, we moved to another country, so my family was always just my mother and my 2 older siblings, since I hardly know my father, and he never took care of us. In my childhood, we never had much money because my mother worked by herself to support the 4 of us. Because of this, I couldn't do the things that most children did. I didn't go on school trips, couldn't make many plans or travel with my friends, or participate in extracurricular activities. On top of that, my mother was someone who, despite being there physically, felt emotionally absent. She didn't help me when I asked for help with schoolwork or listen when I needed advice, so eventually I chose not to rely on her. I also remember that she frequently missed important events like school plays or graduations, and she was the only mother who didn't get along with the other mothers. Because of this, I was often left out when plans were made. My siblings had a similar or worse relationship with her. My brother wasn't very studious, so there were constant arguments between him and my mother. I remember daily shouting matches between them, so when my brother turned 16, he left home. On the other hand, my sister chose to be like me and simply stayed in her own world. As soon as she finished her degree, she moved to England. When I was about 15 and my siblings no longer lived at home, my mother lost her job. She lived on unemployment benefits while renting out my siblings' rooms, so we often had strangers living in our home who stayed for a few days to a few months before new ones arrived. During that time, we had even less money, so I didn't get birthday or Christmas presents. We usually spent Christmas with some of my mother's friends, whom I didn't even know, so I don't have good memories of those holidays. 2 years later, since my mother still hadn't found work, she decided to move to England with my sister. Because I was still a minor, I stayed to live with my older brother. During that time, we grew much closer, and even today, he is the only family member I confide in or get excited to share good news with. The university program I wanted to study was in another city, so I moved. My mother reluctantly paid for my apartment, complaining that I could have stayed and studied in my hometown. Nevertheless, I moved and studied while working. Fortunately, I received scholarships each year, which paid for my tuition since my mother couldn't afford it, and without them, I couldn't have studied. After the pandemic, my mother and sister decided to return to our country. The three siblings decided to talk to her and express the things we hadn't liked in our childhood, and some attitudes we wanted her to change. We all agreed to make an effort, but still, my mother remained the same in many ways. It seemed like she didn't listen, and we had to repeat things several times. She also didn't share anything about herself, so I always felt like she was a stranger. Often, when you went to her house for lunch, someone would call her, and she'd leave in the middle of the meal, or she'd be busy with her own things. Most of the time when she messages, it's because she needs something. After my mother continued acting this way, my brother decided to cut off contact with her, and they no longer speak. Last Christmas, since my boyfriend's parents live in another city, we used that as an excuse to go there though. In part, I used it as a reason to avoid spending Christmas with my mother. My sister usually spent Christmas with her, but my mother treated her the same way as she did me before, inviting some of her friends, and my sister didn't enjoy it either. This year, my sister has also decided to go elsewhere to celebrate Christmas. This Christmas, I couldn't take time off work, so my boyfriend and I decided to stay in our city. I planned to spend the holidays with my brother and my boyfriend. Today, my mother called me because she assumed I was going to spend Christmas with her, even though we never discussed it. She asked if it was okay to invite some of her friends. I told her I was planning to spend Christmas with my brother and boyfriend, and there was a silence. She simply said, "Okay." She never expresses her feelings, but I know it upset her. The situation made me feel sad, but I know it's something I won't enjoy. AITA for not wanting to spend Christmas with her? OP is not an AH for not wanting to spend Christmas with her mom, give the strained relationship with her mom and her past experiences. OP's frustration is completely justifiable, and her right to choose a more fulfilling holiday with people she feels close to must be respected. As for scores, I would rate OP's mom 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. Let's now jump onto the last story for this video from J_AXX 2017, AITA for thinking I was doing the right thing. So, I, 32 and B, should clear this up first before I get into the story. I'm on the spectrum, not severely, but to the point where social contact or communication can be an issue. I love role-playing, have done for nearly 20 years now, and by doing so, it has really brought me out of my shell. People may say I'm too old to be into such things, but it brings me a lot of joy and happiness, and often, it can be a distraction for how busy my brain can get. Everyone has their interests, this is mine. If you have something negative to say about it, that's your opinion, and you're entitled to it, but commenting it isn't going to change anything. I met a lot of people through role-playing online during the old Tumblr days, people from all over the world, some I've met up with in person, and even now, almost 20 years later, I'm still friends with the majority of these people. But there are a certain few I'd consider myself closer to than others. My one friend, who is not from my country, around the same age as me, we are extremely close. Up until a few months ago, we spoke every day on Discord. Even if we weren't actively playing games or role-playing, we spoke, caught up on the day, what we were doing, whatever. And we have done for a long, long time. A few months ago, she met someone. I was super happy for her. I pushed her to meet people because she can be like me. Withdrawn, quiet. But after, especially when they became official, our conversations began to die. And even though I've continuously tried to check in on her, I've barely had any responses. It was after 3 months of literal radio silence that I picked up the courage to message her mum on Facebook to see if she was okay. She was reading my messages, she just wasn't replying to them. She was active on other apps, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, but I just didn't seem to be important enough to talk to, which, to be honest, hurt a little. It still hurts. I'm confused. After her mum confirmed that all was well with her, I left it a few days before reaching out to her directly. I just said, I don't know if I've done something to upset you, but can you let me know if you're okay? You don't need to reply. You can just like the message or something. I'm worried about you." Her boyfriend responded to me a few hours later. Her boyfriend. Immediately I thought that she might have got herself trapped in a relationship where he was the controlling type and stopping who she could talk to, etc. It was either that, or she just didn't care anymore and was purely focused on the relationship she's in. As I said, I'm happy for her. I'm glad she has someone. She deserves everything in life. But we've been through some stuff together, the pair of us, and we'd always had one another to talk to when things got bad. Her boyfriend told me she was facing a lot of stress and anxiety and didn't have the mental capacity to read my messages -- get back to me. So she'd asked him to do it. Mental health. It has never been an issue before. I've always been there for her, just as she has for me, for over a decade. Nearly 15 years. It felt like a kick in the teeth. I understand mental health. Of course I do. I have my own issues too. But I can't help but feel as though I've been completely shut out and basically told that she needs space. Specifically, from me. I haven't tried to contact her since. In fact, I've deleted any messages I'd sent her, TikToks, Discord messages, everything. Perhaps I'm being selfish here, but it just feels awful to think that a friendship that I thought had solid foundations has been washed away by a relationship. I don't know whether to just leave it, to just pretend I'm not bothered by any of this, or to message again. I feel like that would truly be the last nail in the coffin if I did, however. So I'm trying not to, even though I would like some answers. What changed? Why did she think she couldn't come to me with any issues? Why did she have her boyfriend respond? Am I not important enough to just have a small message that just read, "Things are hard right now, but I'll be in touch"? I feel like I'm being selfish here. I know I am. But I'm worried about one of my best friends, and now I can't even contact her directly because obviously he's the one that's going to respond, have input in it. Is there anything I can do to show her I care and that I'm thinking of her? I thought about sending her something in the mail, but I'm tired of losing people I love and don't want to push her away any more than I clearly have. Just to add, I wasn't messaging her daily asking if she was okay during the radio silence. Perhaps once every 2 weeks, I was aware of being overbearing. I'm just sad, I guess. I valued our friendship an awful lot. Any input from others would be great. Should I send her something in the mail or not? What are the next steps here? If you read all this, thank you. I appreciate it. OP is not the AH. It's understandable to feel hurt by the lack of communication from a close friend, especially when a relationship seems to overshadow a long-standing bond. OP was considerate in reaching out and genuinely cares, which isn't selfish. Let's now move on to the next story from Pretend-Response 3728. AITA for cutting ties with my mom who married a man who abused me and groped my sister-in-law. My mother, 49, divorced from my father when I was 6. In 2014, when I was around 15 out of 16, my mother met a man, Gordon. She worked as a reception for a doctor, and she says she has known Gordon for years as a patient at the doctor. He had been coming in recently for mental health medication because his wife had sadly passed from cancer, and the two got close. Gordon is 10 years older than my mum, who was 38 or 39 at the time. The first time I met Gordon, he was in the lounge, and he asked me to put a bikini on to look at my figure, as he could tell I went to the gym. Over the next year, he would repeatedly ask. He would ask to see my abs both when my mum was, and wasn't there. He asked if I was a virgin. If I had friends over, he would come into the room, ask them how old they were, and ask if they were virgins. He would tell me how beautiful I was, and my mother saw nothing wrong when I would tell her I didn't like him. One day, I was in my bedroom, and I heard him come up the stairs. I was upstairs alone. He walked into my bedroom without knocking, and I ran to the door. We were face to face, and he kissed me on my neck. I froze, and he asked me to lift my top up. I said no. He asked again and again, saying, "Oh, go on, just quick, lift your top up." I said no, he was being weird, and he needed to go away. I shut my door and got changed, and left the house. I went to meet my BF at the time, and in conversation said, "Gordon has just been so weird," and relayed the story. My ex immediately rang my father, and it spirals. I go back to get my school uniform, and I tell my mum. She goes to talk to Gordon, comes back to me and says, "You've taken it out of context. Don't ever come back." She kicks me out. A few years go by. Social services have a peak because I break down in school. My mum tells them she's left him, so they allow me to go home. My maternal family turn on me, saying he isn't that much of a threat, and I was being ridiculous. Mother continues her relationship, but is never home. She takes the childhood dog to him constantly. Our relationship is beyond strained. He then gropes my brother's wife. She calls me crying. I raise it with my mum. She kicks me out again at 17. I lived out of my car until I was 20, sofa surfing between houses and my ex who didn't like me very much. I lost all my college work and fought to get into university. I would eat slices of bread for meals. When I was 20, I got a number of texts from Gordon. I've broken up with your mum, LOL. Come round to mine tonight. You've got juicy lips, are they real? I called my dad and blocked him. I then had overwhelming sadness for my mum. I reached out to her and we got back into contact. No apologies, just carrying on like it's nothing. When she kicked me out at 17, all my mum's family cut me off too, which was wonderful. I should say none of his behavior is disputed to this day. Present day. I have a house, a post-grad job, and a dog. I am settled. My mother was an active part of my life, and my fiancé, Derek. Over the last 12 months, she has mentioned Gordon in pieces, suggesting he had changed, and I would become angry and remind her what he did to me. My fiancé, who never met him, wishes him nothing but misery because he knows how much I went through. Derek told my mother, in no uncertain terms, that he would be happy if he stopped existing because it tortures me. She then 12 months ago mentioned she was paying off the remainder of her mortgage, lending this off her parents. Okay? Cool. There were many mentions of him over the last 2 years, but in September she had been away to Spain, in an area she has an apartment. She told me she bumped into him twice. I asked if she had been texting him. She said no. I asked her what was going on and got angry. I told her I hated him. Then a week later she says, "Don't get angry," but he came round to clear the drains, and I threw my cup of tea on the table. I shouted and I cried, and I called her a traitor. She said, "Well, I didn't have to tell you," and I blew up. I asked her what was going on. She said nothing. I asked her again. She said nothing. I told her to leave, and I knew deep down, but I was still in denial. My brother, and now wife, groped girlfriend, just had a baby girl. I couldn't let this man near my niece if this is true. I tried to get her to come over to talk, and she kept canceling. I told her down the phone, and in person, if she wants him in her life, I can't be, and that it wasn't an ultimatum, but I was setting boundaries. She said I was being unfair to her. I asked her to answer my question, that is, what the hell is going on? And she responded, "Well, I'm just upset you would cut me off so easy." For 3 weeks I chase her and keep this secret for her because I know what my brother will do. He would cut her off and stop her seeing her grandchild. She is supposed to come the first Sunday in October and cancels last minute again. I ring her and demand she tells me. She tells me she's seeing him, and I hang up the phone. I call my nan, her mother. I ask if she knew. She says no. I ask again. She says yes. And I call my brother and tell him. My brother goes to speak to her. She cancelled the Sunday because she was tired, having been to a party with Gordon. It also turns out Gordon gave the money to my mum to pay off her mortgage last year. She asked my brother to hide this from me. I called her a liar. She said she was bending the truth. I haven't seen her for 7 weeks, and she texted last night saying it's over for good and he doesn't want the money back. I need to speak to you and brother. She sends this to both of us. I don't feel I can forgive her, even if she's cut him off. I don't trust her. She lied to me, and the ultimate betrayal I feel. So, my question is, even though she says she's cut him off, AITA for saying the damage is done. Goodbye? OP is not an AH. Rather, her mom is an AH for prioritizing a predatory man over her daughter's safety, for dismissing her trauma, and for rekindling relationship with him. So, I would rate OP's mom 4.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. OP's decision to cut ties with her mom is 100% justified. She is not an AH, and I would rate OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from infinite_loss_3037. AITA. For getting an apartment and not telling my husband I'm moving out? We've been married for 1.5 years. Before we got married, he caught me texting my ex. I immediately cut ties with my ex. But since then, my husband is obsessed with my ex. For 2 years, he says things like, "Why don't you call your ex and see if he will come help you? Maybe your ex will take you back since you won't take the trash out." I get it. I broke his trust, and I deserved the treatment he has been giving me. In the last 6 months, he has gotten so much worse. He has threatened to call the cops and have me arrested because I pushed him back after throwing items that belong to my children and said I assaulted him. I know what I did was wrong. I have spent over 2 years dealing with it and trying to make it up for being unfaithful. At what point is enough, though? Do I deserve to be belittled in front of my kids? Do I deserve to be told that I'm the reason I can't hang out with my friends because they may allow me to go be with another man? I have lost all my individualism because I was texting my ex only a couple months after we broke up, and I still getting items from his house. I know I'm the AH when it comes to the beginning and texting my ex, but after 2 years, if there is still no trust, should I stay or go? I started looking for an apartment and got one first try. Won't be ready for another month, and at which time I need to pay rent and security deposit, so I've been putting all my money aside to pay for it. I asked my husband 3 weeks ago why he married me. He responded with repeating the question and asking me, which I had written down so I could hand it to him. I said I asked first, in which he replied, because I love you. I said, but why? Nothing. He stopped talking about it and nagged me for not taking the trash out after making dinner and doing dishes. I feel more like a slave than a spouse most days. I finally gave him the piece of paper with the reasons I married him, which most of those are now the reason I want to divorce him. I don't feel safe or confident in sharing anything with him because he tells his friends. Like, I told him I tried butt stuff once because it was a conversation, and I said I don't want to ever do it again, but because I did it, I was able to find out a medical thing I was having and had surgery. About a month later, we were in the bar and he told his friends and I was the butt of the joke all night. I mentioned it to him and how it made me feel, and said that I deserved it because I was talking to my ex behind his back. Every once in a while, it is brought up. Even for my birthday last year, I got a butt plug as a joke. He never responded to the paper. He read it and said thanks. It has been 3 days, and I am boiling inside because even after being vulnerable and allowing myself to let him know, he still, aside from saying, I love you, have any reason why to be married to me. Love isn't enough at this point. I'm done being his punching bag and him always saying I deserve it after 2 years. Should I tell him I'm moving out in a month? Or just tell him after I get the keys? AITA? Edit. I have known my husband for 6 years prior to being married. I was talking to my ex about getting items from his house, how the phone bill was going to work, getting the utilities out of my name, getting the lease out of my name. My husband asked me to not talk to him, and I was, so I lied about being in communication with him. He thought my friend was talking to him for me. I was not dating my husband before I moved out. My ex and I had been broken up, but living together for 3 months, prior to me leaving also. Update. I want to start off by saying I did not have an emotional affair or any kind of affair with my ex after moving out, just finalizing all the breakup stuff from living together. Here we are, a little over a month, and I've been in my apartment for almost a month now. It got harder to continue biting my tongue, knowing I was going to be leaving. It wasn't supposed to be ready till beginning of November, but they finished it earlier. The week before I got the keys, we had a blowout over getting fast food for our hungry children after a sporting event. They got their food and went home. His daughter had gone back to her mother, and I have my children more than he does, by about 17 days a month. The following weekday, he took the day off without my knowledge and brought home an old car that he just had to buy. He wasn't home when we had gotten home. He was at the bar, and I was stunned he went without me, and when I have my children. His thing was always we never go to the bar without each other. Apparently, it was only me not allowed to go without him. We got into an argument over how he couldn't buy fast food for our kids, but he has no problem going out and buying a car without consulting me. How he had went to the bar, and if I had done that, I would have gotten in trouble by him and consequences to me going. He went on telling me how it is different, because I have responsibilities, and his doesn't live with us. So I said I'm leaving, I can't handle this anymore, and how it is okay for you to do A, B, C, and I can't go anywhere. I don't think he thought I was serious even after bringing home boxes and having my children pack their stuff. I pulled into the driveway with 7 people and a up-haul, and we loaded all of my belongings and my children's, and I moved. He helped pack it up, but didn't come over to my new place until he decided to surrender our dog to me, as he doesn't have time for him. We agreed to continue to date. We went out for my birthday, but I said I wanted to take separate vehicles. He wasn't happy about that, but I'm glad I did. One of my friends came, and all his did. They wouldn't talk to me, acknowledge me, and they did a birthday shot and wished me a happy birthday while I was in the bathroom, and didn't even have an extra for me. So, I left with my GF and her husband. I didn't say bye to anyone, and a fight ended up breaking out because I didn't say bye to my friends and said bye to a few others. My husband accused me of meeting up with another man because I was definitely not going to his place. When I explained to him how I was treated, including how he treated me, he responded with, "Nobody knew how to act about our situation." I asked him if he told them the truth about how I moved out because of the way he treated myself, my children, and that I had enough of trying to talk to you and you not taking accountability for anything. He said if I acted like the other wives and be seen and not heard, that maybe they would have talked to me. PSA, if you are married to someone who doesn't allow you to be yourself, leave. We've been amicable, agreed on what he is keeping and what I am keeping. He just wanted us off his health insurance. I've been better, more relaxed, and my children are happier. I'm more confident in my position at work that I had been so doubtful on since I was promoted. I haven't felt like I'm in survival mode anymore. I'm living again, broke because starting over and buying things over again has really sucked. I've been reconnecting with friends that I hadn't seen or spoken to since we married. I'm crocheting, reading, having conversations with my children that they didn't feel comfortable talking about when we lived with him. I found me again. The few interactions we have had, he accuses me of leaving for another man. He has driven by my new place, and I have it on surveillance, in case he wants to be a jerk. A friend of mine that I've known since elementary school asked me what we had in common and what made me want to marry him. The more I sat there and thought, because I couldn't think of anything other than my family, thought this is what I needed and whom I needed to marry and be with. He's been at the bar almost daily because I'll get text messages from people who see him, or I'll get drunk texts from him trying to start an argument. I spoke with his ex-wife because I was wondering how his child is doing with everything going on. She expressed that they are happier that they aren't forced to spend more time with their dad anymore. She said the situation sucks, and she wished he had changed from when they were married. I asked her what she meant. She proceeded to tell me that her children were never good enough, and he nitpicked them. She said she couldn't chew gum because there would be consequences if she did. He accused her of having an affair with every person she came in contact with. I just sat there, in awe. She asked how my children were doing with the change, and I expressed their change in behavior and the activates they loved doing. They are doing them again, unapologetically. It was refreshing to know that 10 years ago, she made the same decision I had made today. I can't wait until the divorce is final and I'm free. I'll live paycheck to paycheck before I would ever go back. OP is not the AH for moving out without telling her toxic husband. OP's texting to her ex-boyfriend is wrong. And for this, I would rate OP 0.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. However, it does not in any way justify her husband's ongoing abusive and manipulative behavior. OP's husband is an AH, and I would rate him 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump onto the next story from studious_student12. AITA, for wanting to tell my best friend how bad of a friend she's being? This past winter, I moved into an apartment with my best friend and her boyfriend. Everything was fine until we moved to a different apartment. All three of us moved together. I was getting terrible hours at work. Had just left a very bad situation in the city I lived in before moving in with my best friend, and life had just caught up with me. I at the time was getting used to my new normal and was having a very hard time. I was sad and felt like I was useless. I kept to myself for a while, 2-ish months. I still would go here or there with my roommates every once in a while, and was very nice with them. But mainly I needed to be alone. My roommates apparently decided to buy a house. It's 4 months after we moved into our second apartment. And I was surprised because we had just moved. They asked me to move with them and told me they hoped I would want to. I was okay with that. It would be closer to my work and I wouldn't be out of place to live. My roommates told me it was a 3-bedroom house. They told me I could only have a choice at one bedroom that was downstairs, and I couldn't take the upstairs one because it is right next to them, and they wanted privacy. The bedroom that was offered to me was very small. I'm talking could fit a queen-size bed if you didn't shut the door, and the bedroom didn't have a closet. This is some backstory. This entire past year, I've been struggling with my Powers car. It's a 2016, so shouldn't be too bad, but multiple oil leaks makes for a really expensive bill. I got my car repaired. 2,000 USD later, it's still leaking oil from somewhere. My friend told me I can live at her house, but can't park my car there because of the oil leak. She said, "I'm not saying you can't live there. You just can't park your car there. I don't know what you're going to do." I told her that puts me in a hard spot. At this point, I'm left with 1 month to either fix my car or find a new place to live. Which not wanting an oil stain on your driveway is valid, but there are ways around that. Anyways, life goes on. I'm working a lot more now and I'm stressed too because I have a month to find a way to work my shit out. And I was gone for about 1 week because of family events and prior commitments I had. All in this time, I'm moving stuff to my parents because IDK where to live and I need a place to put my stuff. One day, she asks me if I'm okay, and goes on to say that we are better friends when we don't live together, and that she doesn't want me to live with her and her boyfriend. She said there is tension between us. Friends being friends when they don't live together is totally valid, but I didn't know anything was wrong at all. She again asks me if I'm okay a few days later. I said I have no time to figure anything out, and I'm stressed. She said, "Well, we have to pay next month's rent, so if you need, you can stay here that month. You will just be responsible for that entire month's rent of 3,000 USD, which I feel is crazy. Their buyout fee is 3,500 plus the next month's rent, which they didn't make me pay any of that, but I needed to stay an extra month. She wanted me to pay 3,000 USD in full. More backstory. In the past, we planned to move to Florida together, and I paid to get out of my lease to move. A week before moving, she told me she didn't want to move. So back then, I also was put in a housing situation because of her. I'm outgoing and weird. Sometimes I say things and do things, but that's what makes life fun. She always tells me I'm stupid. For example, I'll be like, "I wonder what the cat is thinking." And she says, "He probably thinks you're stupid." Or when I told her I got stung by a jellyfish on vacation, she goes, "The people around you were probably like, look at this stupid girl getting stung by a jellyfish." Like, I know I'm funny and do stupid things, but the things I do are in good fun and do not harm anyone. I do have my together and can hold my own. I just feel so small around her. Her saying stuff like this is very common. This wasn't just a one-time thing, these are just 2 examples. AITA for wanting to talk friend to friend and just simply say, "Hey, I don't know what you want with this friendship, but this is how I feel." These decisions not only affect you, but you have a third party here that you should think about before making these types of decisions. And it isn't the first time I've been burned by you regarding housing. I would never hold her back from anything in life ever, a house or anything. But I do think 3,000 USD for next month's rent is crazy. And just the little things like how she changed her mind so fast. I'm just trying to understand it, and I'm wondering how I should approach this situation with her. OP is not an AH for feeling hurt by her friend's dismissive behavior. Demanding rent is another thing, but belittling your friend cannot be justifiable. OP's wanting clarity and expressing her feelings is completely valid. As for scores, I would rate OP's friend 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets a 0. Let's now jump on to the next story from Immediate Dashimu, 9057. AITA for confronting my grandfather for kicking out my 17-year-old sister. So, some backstory first. My mother and father split about 6 to 7 years ago. My mother got custody of us. About 3 years ago, I moved back in with my dad, who lives with my grandmother, in a 3-bedroom house. It was mainly just to take care of her, and for the ease of it. Balkan background. It's a pretty normal living circumstance for us. Anyway, my mother died about 3 months ago. I have a younger brother, 18, who wanted to go off on his own and found some housing for now. But we needed somewhere for my 17-year-old sister. My mother's side of the family discussed it and decided my grandpa could take her in as he has a spare bedroom and lives by himself. My sister is fairly independent and has her own job while going to school, but she's always been a bit quiet and doesn't talk much. Anyway, my first red flag was when I went to see my sister the first day she moved there. I went to check up on her as she lives about 5 to 10 minutes away. I went and knocked. We went to her room and chatted a bit. And then my grandfather gets back. He seemed a bit annoyed, but we chatted, and then I left. The next day, I get a message from him saying that it was weird that I was in my sister's bedroom with the door closed, and no one should be allowed in there except for her. I thought this was pretty disrespectful, and kind of kept my distance from him since then. Since then, They had some fights about her not leaving her room and her not talking, saying good morning, etc. Anyway, a couple days ago I got a message from my sister saying that she got kicked out. So I went straight to the house to see what was going on. I asked what had happened, and I didn't want no bullshit story, just the truth. He told me she hadn't done what she was told. She was being disrespectful, and that she still wasn't talking much. He didn't give examples, so I pushed further. The one example he gave me was she didn't fold the towels the way he liked. So I just said in a slightly annoyed voice that I think he was a human, and he was a spineless coward of a human. I found out a couple days before this from my sister that he was planning to try to get me to sign a paper to get rid of all rights to what was left over of my mother's estate, and that if I didn't accept it, he would take me to court to try and convince a judge I was estranged from her. Personally, I don't want any of the money as I don't need it. I just want a say in how it's spent so no dumb decisions are made with it. He also said some personal attacks against me as well as some other kind of weird subjects I won't discuss. I then asked him why he doesn't trust me in the first place, and he said because of me touching his phone when we were signing documents in a bank, and he had to use his phone. He isn't very good with electronics, so I held my hand out in a motion to put his phone in my hand so I could do it for him, which he didn't object to. He also got mentioned another instance where we had an appointment and asked for an hour warning beforehand, which he agreed to. He then gave me a 30 minutes warning and got annoyed when I came 15 minutes late because there was no parking where he said there was. So I had to go 2 blocks down. Both these cases he classed as me being disrespectful towards him. I've also found out that he has said some very low-key jokes to her that kind of creeped her out, and weird followings on social media and such. So that would explain her not really wanting to talk to him that much. Anyway, now most of the parents on my mother's side of the family refuse to talk to me. My brother and most of my cousins are pretty much on my side though, as I voice recorded all of my interaction with him. My dad's out of the country right now, so we have a room for her to stay in, but it's not permanent. I'm more than glad to sleep in the living room need be, and she gets my room. The reason this ticked me off is because there were no warnings given, just straight to the nuclear option, and no options were discussed. She was just told to leave by the end of the month. OP is not an AH for standing up to his grandfather's unfair treatment of and inappropriate behavior towards his sister. OP did nothing wrong here, so he is not an AH, and I would rate him 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. As for OP's grandfather, he is an AH, and I would rate him 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye bye, see you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.